Hello, Dr. Ryder and fellow classmates. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Jeremy Sullivan, and today I have the privilege of sharing with you my perspective and analysis of Anthony Trollope's The Warden. First, I will start with a short biography of Mr. Trollope. Anthony Trollope was born in 1814 as the fourth son of a London lawyer. His father's law practice fell through, and the family's financial state gradually declined, as you could imagine. Anthony attended multiple schools as a boy, but his attempts at university scholarships fell through. In 1834, at the age of 20, he became an usher in a school at Brussels. While there, he hoped to learn French and German so he could be commissioned in an Austrian cavalry regiment. Later that year, however, he became a junior clerk in the London General Post Office. He experienced the sting of poverty for 7 years until he was transferred to Ireland in 1841 as a deputy postal surveyor. This new position freed him from his financial burden and allowed him to live a much more relaxed life. He came to love the outdoors, especially fox hunting, to which I can certainly relate. In 1843, he began his first novel, which will be published in 1847. He was married to Rose, the daughter of a bank manager, in 1844. He was promoted and transferred on postal missions, which landed him in West England in 1851. While here, in 1852, he began his work on The Warden. Many other published works were to follow. On November 3, 1882, he suffered a paralytic stroke while laughing at a comic novel being read with his family. On December 6th, he died, leaving behind his wife and 2 sons. Now let's take a closer look at The Warden. In case you're wondering why I'm doing my presentation outside, there are 2 main reasons. One is because it is a beautiful fall day in South Alabama, but more importantly, it's because the work I'm presenting is a pastoral. It is set in a fictional cathedral town called Barchester. The main characters include Septimus Harding, the warden of Hiram's Hospital and precentor of the cathedral; Bishop Grantley, the Bishop of Barchester, one of Mr. Harding's friends; Archdeacon Grantley, who was the son of Bishop Grantley and son-in-law of Mr. Harding; Susan, the wife of Archdeacon Grantley and daughter of Mr. Harding; Eleanor, another daughter of Mr. Harding; and John Bold, a young doctor in Barchester. The book begins and we meet Mr. Harding, who is, as I mentioned, the warden of Hiram's Hospital. Hiram's Hospital is a charitable hospital established by John Hiram 400 years earlier. Its purpose is to care for the poor older men near Barchester. As warden, Mr. Harding is assigned with the care of the 12 men known as the beadsmen, who occupy the hospital. For his duty, he receives a salary which is based on the value of the land. Since so much time has passed, the land has significantly increased in value. The warden's salary is more than enough to provide for he and his daughter Eleanor, so he gives the 12 residents of the hospital a measure of extra money. He is a very kind person and spends much of his time playing the cello for the older men whom he enjoys taking care of. Eleanor is falling in love with John Bold, and it appears the feeling is mutual. However, John Bold has noticed the large salary the warden is receiving. He has no hard feelings against the warden and wishes to do him no harm, but his conscience tells him that he should stand up for the beadsmen and assist them in getting much of the money that goes to the warden. He hires a lawyer to see to the matter. Archdeacon Grantley is offended by John Bold's action and hires a lawyer of his own to defend the warden. While all of this is occurring, the local daily paper, known as the Jupiter, prints articles that attack the warden. The warden is very shamed by the accusations. He feels that he has been kind to the beadsmen and that he hasn't taken anything that he wasn't rightfully entitled to. Although the warden has been very kind to them, even the beadsmen begin to feel a sense of entitlement and want the money for themselves. They don't realize that their selfishness could lead to someone who isn't as generous as the warden being put in charge of their care. Eleanor goes to John Bold to plead for her father. She begs him to stop what he is attempting to do, and he reluctantly agrees. The warden, after being so hurt by those who have risen up against him and by the harmful words of the Jupiter, begins to feel that he should step down as warden. After all, it was never his intent to take money that wasn't rightfully his, and he had been kind to the beadsmen. He wanted no further controversy. John Bold talks to the lawyer and asks that there be an end to the suit against the warden, but the warden has made up his mind that he will step down. Bishop Grantley calls for the warden and tries to assist the warden in planning for his future apart from the hospital. He seeks to be very generous to Mr. Harding, even inviting him to live at the palace. Mr. Harding refuses the bishop's generosity and instead makes plain that he intends to support himself. His only request, which was granted by the bishop, was that he remain the precentor of the cathedral. Upon Mr. Harding's farewell to the beadsmen, they realize that a grave mistake has been made. They now see that whoever replaces the warden will likely not be as generous as he. They regret their selfishness and wish that the warden would stay. At the end of the story, it appears that Mr. Harding has won by giving up and quitting. He enjoys spending his time with his family and at the palace with the bishop. He dines with the bishop regularly and is missed when he isn't around. Now I'd like to point out a few of the things that made me appreciate the author and stuck out to me while I read The Warden. My favorite piece of imagery from the book is the description of the archdeacon. Quoting from the book, "Though doubt and hesitation disturb the rest of our poor warden, no such weakness perplexed the nobler breast of his son-in-law. As the indomitable cock, preparing for the combat, sharpens his spurs, shakes his feathers, and erects his comb, so did the archdeacon arrange his weapons for the coming war, without misgiving and without fear." End quote. I have a rooster that parades himself like this every day. Although he's such a small bird, he is fearless. This was an excellent description that I could certainly relate to. Next, I certainly appreciated the bits of comedy that Mr. Trollope stuck within various parts of his work. One part of the book that made me laugh was Anthony Trollope's way of setting the scene to visit Plumstead Episcopi, which is the home of the archdeacon, and I quote, "The reader must now be requested to visit the rectory of Plumstead Episcopi, and as it is yet still early morning, to ascend again with us into the bedroom of the archdeacon. The mistress of the mansion was at her toilet, on which we will not dwell with profane eyes, but proceed into a small inner room where the doctor dressed and kept his boots and sermons." Then another thing that occurs commonly within The Warden is Trollope stepping outside of the story to go into great detail about a matter. One such instance of this is in chapter 11. He practically spoils the whole chapter by summarizing it before he starts, but he does so in a comical manner that's appreciated. Finally, I'd like to share an association with Scripture that kept coming to mind as I read The Warden. The sense of entitlement that crept into the minds of the beadsmen left me thinking about the book of 1 Samuel. God had delivered his people from the bondage of Egypt and had provided for their needs, yet they demanded a king. They already had a king, which was God himself, but they wanted an earthly king. In the same manner, the beadsmen already had a warden that provided for them and had been generous to them, but they wanted more. However, the book gives this description of their fate. This was to be the end of all their mighty struggle, of their fight for their rights, of their petition, and their debates, and their hopes. They were to change the best of masters for a possible bad one, and to lose 2 pence a day each man. The strong moral that I took away from reading The Warden is, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Discontentment can be very misleading.